What do people get wrong about longevity training?
The most important thing is that longevity happens in the context of really listening to the body. Because if it's only a concept and you do some protocols that some people put out, but it doesn't work for you, then it's not really supportive. Because every single one of us functions a little different. We all have a different DNA, a different conditioning, a different history, and also a different mindset. And the most important thing is really to work with the body wisdom, I call it, or the intelligence that is ingrained in us. And if we get older, it is much more important to listen to those dimensions within than just, with the ego and with willpower. Because at the end of the day, you will suffer and you will get the lessons of life that it is too maybe too conceptualized or too little in relation to what the body really needs, what their needs are when you get older. Longevity to me is really living according with nature, with your own nature, and how the body responds. So you need to be able, or you need to be willing to really learn what life wants you to get and to learn.
How is the idea of longevity training, especially as you get older? You want to feel good in your workouts. How is that different to mainstream fitness? You go to the gym, you just work really hard as much as you can. How is it the mindset different for longevity training?
Longevity means also that the older you get, you have still a lot of life quality. You want to feel good in your body. You want to feel practical in the normal day activities. You want to be able to bend down without pain. You want to go on a ladder, or you want to lift weights into your car, and all these kind of normal things. When you get older, when you, let's say, over 50, over 60, over 70, so that the life quality really sticks with you, and you don't, and you're able to be independent, sort of, or stay independent as long and as positive as possible. And if you come with the idea that it should still work like in your 20s or 30s, then you are really too stubborn to let the gradual aging process really happen, because you don't accept that you get older. And this can be a challenge. It has been also a challenge to me sometime, when you feel like, it doesn't get that easy anymore than whatever 10 or 20 years ago. So the willingness really to go with when the body gets older, or gets even more mature in a way, in a positive way, then you need to really kind of be malleable, in the way you live your life. And the thing is that also what people don't recognize, or they may recognize it, but they don't live up to it, that the body needs much more breaks and time for regeneration. It doesn't mean that you are not able to perform properly, but you have to learn the lessons and the changing of the body.
That must be a real challenge, because on the one hand, you don't want to push as hard as you did when you were in your 20s, but at the same time, you don't want to think, because I'm 50, I can't work hard anymore. It's that, what I gather from you is that delicate balance of being firm but fair on yourself, pushing hard as much as you can tolerate, listen, but then also take that rest.
Exactly. And it's still important to have a certain intensity in your training, because I want to keep my muscles, I want to keep my body tension. I want to keep my connected strengths as a whole unit. And if I only play around and do kind of a training that is more kind of an excuse to at least do a little bit, it doesn't help in the long run. So intensity is still important, maybe not the volume. The volume is a different story. So volume needs to be less in my experience. You don't need to train for 1.5 hours, but if you have 20 or 30 minutes intensity, then it's the right dosage to me to really even make improvements and feel really that the body keeps the muscles, keeps the movement quality, and also the body composition.
I'm so glad you said that point about intensity, because what I gather from the older generation is that they think, intensity is dangerous. It's going to increase my risk of injury and stuff like that. But it's so key what you said. Instead of doing 3 sets for every exercise, maybe you do 2. If your workout had 5 exercises in the past, for example, maybe you drop it down to 4. But you're not doing that and then also having such a low intensity. It's like a warm-up. I could imagine your workouts are shorter, less sets or volume, but they're very intense.
Exactly. And then also you have a much better regeneration, because you don't create all the biochemical substances, that you have sore muscles for days, and you cannot move properly the following days, because that's also a big mistake. If you do a lot of isolation exercises only when you get older, then and had whatever for arms or for a certain body part, 3 or 4 exercises, 3 to 5 sets, 12 to 15 reps, then you need, in my age, you cannot, for legs, for instance, I wouldn't be able to walk for 3 days. But then at the same time, in these days, you cannot move properly, so you don't have a good metabolism, you don't burn because you don't move the other days. Maybe you have a good pump in the very moment, and that's also satisfying, but in the middle and long run, it's not really the thing you do when you get older. And it's also important to have a good variety, a good mixture of exercise choices. It's okay to do some isolation exercises. I still also do, but I do a lot of compound exercises, functional movements, and of course also a lot of body weight, because body weight really helps with staying capable in terms of movement quality, in terms of fascia strength, joint health, the ability really to move in daily life in a way that is still functional and suits a human life, a human body. Whereas if you only do machine training, then you really pay the price, because then you are not able to do, for instance, a long mountain hike or a longer bike ride, or you are not able to do all kinds of different sports anymore, because the body is not prepared for this anymore.
Stefan, you're awesome, man. You've essentially ticked a lot of the topics I wanted to address here, and I'm glad to see that you're putting into practice what you preach with this stuff, because it's clear that you've got mobility, strength, muscle. You're nearly 60 years old, right?
Well, I'm in my 58th year, yes.
Yeah, closer to that, but you're still embodying all this stuff. And there tends to be this idea for the older population that as you get into your 50s, you got to start doing more machines, less free weights, less body weight exercise. But your experience has been the opposite with if you don't do that stuff, you miss out on the coordination, the stability, the body control, losing that function of just moving your body in space.
Exactly, I totally agree, and this is a big mistake in the fitness industry, that they put older people into machines, and then they need to follow with their eyes a certain curve, on a display, and so they don't get the body sensations, the feeling. I still, I train now for more than 40 years, maybe 45 even when I started out, and I still learn. And I still have aha moments, when I do different or new things, because I'm very experimental and explorative also still in my movements, that I still get some connections within the body, in terms of fascia or connected tissue, how things work together, and how I can make it easier to make it more coherent and connected, especially for body weight movements, when the body, also, especially the fascia, needs to be connected, from toes to head for certain movements and certain figures and so on. And you actually don't learn it when you only go to a machine. I'm also a personal trainer, and I work with clients also above 70. I do with them pull-ups, proper push-ups. I do a lot of body weight stuff, so they need to hang a lot. And they get so many improvements in their daily lives, the decompression of the spine, the opening of the shoulders, the mobility of the hips and all this. You need to move as natural as possible when you get older. The more you are in a kind of cage, kind of isolation movement, the more the body gets degenerated. Although you have maybe a strong biceps or a strong chest or something like that, but only in this very isolated movement, it doesn't help, when you are 70 or 80 or whatever, if you only can push. If, for instance, you fall down and your wrists are not prepared and they break.
This episode is sponsored by Fitness FAQs. Learn how to master calisthenics with the best bodyweight workouts. Use the coupon code podcast20 at checkout to get 20% off when shopping at Fitness FAQs. Hurry, take advantage of this discount and enjoy the progress. It's the multi-planar aspect of these bodyweight exercises that allows you to unlock your full movement potential and get more out of your fascia as well. Can you expand on that term fascia? Because some people might not be familiar with what it is and the impact on the body.
Well, the fascia is a layer that connects basically the whole body together. I very often compare it with I don't know how it is in English. What you have on top of a bed. Not the cover, but on top of the mattress. How is it called?
The mattress protector.
Exactly. And if this is really straight and you don't have kind of this wrinkles and things when it is not straightened out, then you have also a problem in your body, because in this very area of your body, the muscles cannot glide over the fascia, or the fascia cannot glide underneath the muscle, and then very often in that area you create tension, pain, or a compromised joint action or mobility. So the fascia needs to be flattened and smooth and hydrated also. And also hydration happens through nutrition, but also through movement. that you get, all the important nutrients in the very layers of the body, where the body needs to work together to be smoothly and properly connected. So it's for instance the strengths that gymnasts have with their very intense positions on rings, for instance. They wouldn't be able if they only do isolated exercises. They have not only strong muscles, but they have even stronger fascia, because the fascia keeps the muscles in composition and together for certain exercises and movements. And this is not trained if you only train with isolation exercises, because there is, for instance, a superficial front line and the back line, and the back line starts here and it goes down behind the body to the very soles of the feet. And if in this kind of, connected fascia lines, you have a lot of how can I say, breaks or not really smooth connections from top to feet, then you are compromised a lot in natural movements. Then very often you get back pain or shoulder pain or neck pain and all this kind of stuff. So fascia is also, you train fascia, for instance, also in yoga or in Tai Chi movements, in fluid flowing movements. And this is also what I do. But in these modalities, it lacks to me a little bit of the addressing the muscle to grow, the stimuli that really the muscle stays strong. Because I still want to have muscles when I get old, and not only be able to do nice yoga poses, for instance. Because you need both. The older you get, you need the mobility and the strengths. And I see also people that either do this or that, but they miss, the whole capacity that the body still have when you get older.
That's exactly why I wanted you on the show, Stefan, because you don't just do one or the other. You're not just doing calisthenics. You also lift weights. You also do mobility. And it's the combination of all these which allows you to still be so youthful, as well as with strength. There is also this fear for people that are getting older that they shouldn't do low reps or do any type of strength work because it's more dangerous. What's been your experience with building strength as you get older?
Well, I think strength is one of the most asset or the most powerful and important assets when we get older in terms of longevity. But of course, people need to learn the proper mechanics of lifting. Because if you lift a weight and you don't have proper technique, then it's also dangerous or can be dangerous. So it all boils down to also, and that's of course also the job of good trainers, that they learn the people and really help people to get the idea how to move a weight from the top to from the bottom to the top, for instance, like a kettlebell or a barbell or also dumbbells. So it's important to be able to know what's important in terms of breathing, in terms of bracing core, in terms of being able to address the core or to activate the core. And also to get the sense what kind of structures of the body are involved in a movement. And if that's not there, then it can be tricky because the mechanics they need to be there, the functionality. And then I also do still deadlifts with 1 to 3 reps. I need a proper warm up, and then I still deadlift 170 kilos or something like that. I can still deadlift. I do it not on a regular basis, but from time to time, I just want to prove myself, okay, that my training modalities or my philosophy works, and I should be able to do it. And then I do it. And I'm proper warmed up, and I know, of course, the technique because I did it for decades. But I do it. I also listen to the body. You know, I have a structure, but I'm also very. I have also freedom in the structure, so it's not kind of like this. So, because if the body doesn't feel like doing a heavy session today, I do rather a little calisthenics or a little bodyweight session only, because the body much more needs this today. And this is also something you need to learn when you get older, that you do something, but you do it according to the needs of the body. I mean, also as a young athlete, it's important to learn this, because the younger you learn it, the better it's for you. It is for you also, you know, when you have more decades on your back or on your shoulders. It's very important, and it was not always like this in my life. So I was also pretty straightforward when I was young, and of course it was a totally different time. We had no internet, you know, like guys like you, I could learn from. It was all we had some magazines and some older guys that worked out and did a lot of also stupid stuff, and you got. How can I say, motivated to do it like this also, but you paid the price. So today it's much easier because there's so many good people out there you can learn from. And it's better to learn early than only to learn through pain. I mean, pain is inevitable probably in life. But the more you find people and ways you can learn from, the better it is.
That part you just mentioned about pain is something that people need to hear, because another misconception when people get older, if they get some type of pain, they get very scared, especially if they're new to exercising. They get afraid of the worst thing off. Hurt my back, I'm going to be really bad in pain. I'll never move the same. They tend to get a bit too fearful. My background is a physiotherapist, a physical therapist, I think they call it in Germany, the States.
Yes.
And a big part of my job is the education. And to think that you'll never get discomfort or pain when you exercise is unrealistic expectation. All of us will get some type of ache, niggle, slight tweak over time, but it's important that you listen to your body, you slowly introduce the exercises back, you build up your strength, and just know that your body is really strong and resilient when you teach it how. Because your example there, you're deadlifting 180 kilos and you're nearly 60 years old. That's awesome. And you don't even specialize in just doing deadlift. So you've built up this strength over time. Your body can tolerate that. Your back, your hips, your knees, everything can handle it. But if you just never did exercise, you couldn't handle that. So it's about building up over time.
It's true, you know, and we also have to consider and to accept that pain is always also a message from the body. It's a feedback. So it doesn't mean if you start training and you have a pain or a tweak or something like that, as you said, that it is something dangerous or else. It just it is a feedback of the body that, and you can also, you know, start analyzing why is the pain there, or where does the pain come from, and then the pain can be really a teacher. That you learn to move in ways and to train your body and to to develop a body that is then has less pain, or is even pain-free if you take on the lesson of the body and the teaching. Because very often also when the pain appears at a certain part of the body, it's not the cause there. So the cause can be at a totally different area, or through a certain daily behavior you have, sitting wrongly, or having the wrong bed, or whatever it can be, or you having wearing the wrong shoes, or all these kind of things, So if you really are willing to be a disciple of life, that's where actually the word discipline comes from. Being a disciple and are willing to learn from the feedback that your life circumstances give you, your pains give you, and all that, then you are on a good track to live a healthy and also a happy life. But you need to be willing to see it like that, and not it's a curse, or I'm old, I cannot do this anymore. That's the wrong approach, in my opinion.
And that's what I've always loved about exercise, because it's all for ourselves. We can always look at how much sleep have we been getting, what's our nutrition look like, what is my workout, did I progress too much and then now I have this pain. It's not as if you're competing in a sport where it's the final. You have to show up no matter how your body is. You don't listen, you just push because you have to compete and try and win. With this, it's a individual practice. It's a journey that never stops. And hearing you speak, you're still learning, you're still always listening to your body, and doing what is best for it in the moment often comes off the reflection of everything that happened to that point.
Exactly. And very often also when you experience pain in the body, it's the best medicine sometimes is really to start moving differently, or to even address the pain, of course, careful and intelligently, but not stopping and not taking on the feedback of the body. The most important, because I don't know, maybe it's the same in Australia, but here in Germany and in the Western world in general, they take then painkillers or a medicine or something like that, just to numb down the pain. And then you don't get, the message or the feedback that the body wants you to grasp, or to at least start to be aware of. And this is a totally different approach, because very often the pain comes also not from the body, but from the space between the two ears.
A classic example of that is anti-inflammatory. The body needs that inflammatory response in order to heal. And the best example I can give of this is if you do a hard workout, say it's for the goal of muscle building, you've torn down, you've got a lot of damage, there needs to be inflammation to repair and then regenerate that tissue. People used to say, after the workout, go in an ice bath, try and get that inflammation down. But research has clearly shown that acutely after exercise, if your goal is that actually getting that inflammation, doesn't help you. So this is a way of saying that pain or discomfort or that natural healing process of the body, we shouldn't mute it always with exercise, with medication, or try and stop it. The body's so much smarter than sometimes I think we try with medication.
Yeah, and also what you do after work. Well, first it starts with the intention for a workout. What is your intention? So why do you do it in the first place? So if you only do it because it's a pattern and you follow it for decades, and you are kind of dependent on the pattern to feel a certain way, that's not the right intention. just because you don't want to get older, or you cannot accept, that the body is declining over the decades and so on. This is the worst advice, or the worst approach if you have an intention like this. Then second, how do you feel during the workout? How does it feel? If you experience already pain through the workout and you push through no matter what, then it's also a very wrong approach. I mean, I know guys that take a few painkillers before a workout in order to be able to go through the workout because of the pain. They didn't learn, what movement and what the body actually is and wants and needs. And then how you feel afterwards, and immediately afterwards, and a couple of hours afterwards, and the next day. And so, if you really are willing to listen, then you learn a lot about your body and the response that your body is delivering you. So, and the more you are really willing to go with this kind of, within this kind of learning context, the easier you will develop, keep your muscles, even improve with older age. In your 60s, 70s, 80s, it's still possible. There are also plenty of studies out there. When people over 90 start to do strength training, how much they improve, and in really also in short amounts of time. But with a proper approach, and movement is, in terms of longevity, is a lifelong, I would say, even a must. If you really want to have life quality to the last breath that runs through a body.
That is such an uplifting message for the older generation to embrace, because the standard narrative that's said is, as I get older, I can't get more flexible, I can't gain strength. It's being realistic with the expectations. We can all progress no matter what age you start at or continue to do it, but it's the rate of progress. That's something that needs to be clear, because the person starting when they're 20, they're going to progress really fast. But then if you start when you're 60, 70, 80, you're progressing, but it's going to be at a slower rate.
Absolutely. And also one thing is very important, that you start according to where you are at a given moment. And then it's important to feel a kind of joy also, that the body experiences it when it is able, or when it gets the space, the time, and the attention, that it is allowed to move as it is designed to, because the body is designed to move. And if we don't move the body, then of course many problems are not necessarily, but in the most of the cases, problems are starting to build. And it's a slippery process very often. It's gradual, for a very long time, people are not feeling, the degenerative process, but all of a sudden it's then there because they were sleeping too long. And then it's much more difficult to get back to a certain state where you really feel comfy again and capable. So the better thing is really to see movement as a lifelong companion, and you just move throughout your life, and have then also the benefits always with you. But it's not that easy. I know. I mean, I even owned a gym in back in the day, and I learned about a lot about how people are operating from here, and they are motivated, and then they really push through, but then they fluctuate and they drop, and then they come back a year later or 5 years later, and so on. So the whole thing also breaks down to really seeing the body as a gift, as a precious instrument for human experiences of all kinds, and not only physical experiences, but also spiritual experiences, or experiences that are really so joyful that it is hard to describe. Because we are also, of course, spiritual beings having a human experience. But the experience instrument is the body and our nervous system, because without that, we cannot experience all these higher states of consciousness. So the more the body is healthy, and you see yourself more as a multidimensional being, then the more joyful and healthy and happy your life is going to be. But this is very often not recognized in people, or only then when some big challenges arise, or some painful episodes come up. Then the people are only willing then to change something. It's also okay, that's probably the main message of pain is, the feedback, you need to change something, or you need to transform in a certain way.
Of course. And the problem here is that it's a slow occurrence over time. You lose a little bit of strength, a little bit of muscle, you gain a little bit of fat. Slowly, your body doesn't feel as good. It's not as if you wake up one day, I don't feel good. I think if it was a more acute process, people would wake up faster and realize how much benefit there is from the physical training, which is beyond just getting the benefits. It's the psychological and the spiritual unlocking that you really can channel from exercise, I've found as well.
Absolutely. On every level, if you start changing things, all the other levels are also improving. So, and it's okay. Some people start with mental training, or with meditation or something like that. Some get the same benefits by starting to move the body. Some by changing the diet. But the best thing is when everything works together, because then you are on a track, let's say, that is really, you feel like you are developing, let's say, or growing. The better word is growing. Growing in terms of as a whole human being, not only on a certain level, but as a human being in general. And the human being is a very complex being, a very sophisticated being, a very it's even hard to explain how precious it is to have the experience of a human life.
That's a whole podcast in itself.
It is. But this is very often neglected by people, or not seen. But the older you get, Daniel, the more you see it, that the physical life, it's a fleeting experience. It's transition. How do you say? It's the body is perishable, let's say.
Yeah, and what you just said before really stood out to me when you broke down those 3 different ways of looking at your body as you get older, where you have Group A, which is the one that keeps doing the same training, trying to force what's not there as they get older. Think the person doing marathons. their knees hurt, everything hurts. They just keep pushing. They're getting stress fractures. The bodybuilder who their body kills them, but they're popping pain meds to do it. With what I gather from your philosophy, it's about that real listening to your body, having a well-balanced approach of exercises, and then having a level of understanding that your body will eventually decline. Like you have to accept that. I think that's something that's really hard for us in our 30s, 20s. We don't feel that. We've only ever known progress.
Yeah, that's why it is important, in my opinion, also as a life coach with a very holistic approach, that we don't stick too much to our idealized self-images that we have in a young age. I mean, I was also a very strong guy in my youth, very muscular, very able to perform. I was a decathlete. I did bobsleigh. I did ice hockey. I did a lot of sports, and I was also strong. But when I was young, I was too much identified with the image I created and the image others had of me. So you need to really be able to let these images go early enough, because if you stick too much to this image you had in your 20s and 30s, you will for sure experience a lot of problems when you get older, because this is exactly what the bodybuilders do, for instance, when they are really strong and had a certain body appearance and composition in their youth, and they don't accept that the muscles are, not that strong anymore, and they decrease in volume, and the strength decreases and so on. They have a big problem, and then they do things that are not healthy anymore. In all kinds of areas. You know what I mean. And this is really exactly the opposite of longevity or of growing. It's actually it's the opposite. It's not willing to learn, not willing to get what life is all about, because the image is so rigid and so contained that they have a problem that the image is going to dissolve one day. And if longevity is only trying to prolong life because of fear of death, then it's not longevity. Then it's a totally different story. Because longevity means accepting that the body will die one day, but until then, you live as healthy, as happy, and as whole as a human being as possible. That's longevity to me.
That is a great definition. I could not agree more with that. And something I see many of these bodybuilders in particular, a lot of powerlifters, as they get older and they're not at their peak, the ones that embrace other things such as mobility, for example, they tend to be more well-rounded and less fragile. They don't have that insecurity as much, that all my eggs are in this basket just for looks or just for strength. You start to do this mobility and stretching, and it adds so much more to your experience of moving your body. And I notice with you tend to do a lot more active movements instead of just passive stretching. What's the reason for that?
Because I feel that my nervous system has much more benefits in terms of also keeping the body together, meaning that the movements are more connected, and I get a much better sensation of the body in terms of integrating maybe more tense body parts in a whole movement rather than addressing only the tense part. Because integrating helps the whole body to stay more capable, and also, mobility is different than flexibility. I mean, flexible is when one joint can be, or two joints can do a certain movement in a very extreme way. For instance, with hypermobile people, for instance, they are pretty
Held
flexible.
with support.
Exactly.
Like in yoga, where they...
Exactly. And mobility means moving as a whole unit in a way that is still gracious, connected, natural, functional. Whereas a stretching doesn't need to be functional necessarily. When I have, maybe I have extremely flexible hamstrings in a certain yoga position, but I'm not able to use my hamstrings for a stiff-legged deadlift or whatever, movements with weights, for instance, with kettlebells or in a certain strengths position, then it's worthless to me in a way, because it doesn't help me. It doesn't help for life or for practical life situations. If it's only in a passive, certain position, flexible, but not when I need to lift a weight because I'm doing something in my garden, or I need to move something just for practical reasons around the house.
And when you're doing these mobility exercises where you're moving, it's awesome combining the breath, because from traditional training, you've got that big Valsalva maneuver. I'm going for a 1 rep max deadlift. Fill the belly, hold. But if you do that in mobility, you won't get your maximum range. It won't down-regulate the nervous system. I'm sure, can you talk about that a bit with the breathing and how you include it?
My experience is this, and I also taught classes for a long time that I called free moving. And it was only with the body, no equipment. And very often I just started with a group of people, and I encouraged them and I invited them just to stay there, or to sit or to lie and listen how the body wants to move in the very moment, naturally. So I didn't give them an exercise, but I encourage them to listen to the body and just to move what the body wants in the very moment.
So would that be feeling tension in, say, one person in the spine? They're going to rotate.
Exactly.
Another person, hip flexor.
Exactly. Or others go into a deep squat, or others needed to just bring the arms overhead because the thoracic spine and the shoulders needed to have a different position rather than sitting whole day on a desk and something like that. So because then everybody moved different. And it was not that easy for people when I started this, because they were used to get instructions, okay, in the gym, right? In a group fitness setting. They get instructions, they get music, they get tools, they get instructions. And they don't feel the body. And this is what I saw over decades, that didn't improve. Well, they were sweating afterwards, and maybe they burned some calories, and maybe that was also their intention in the first place. But I had a different idea of teaching people. So this is what I realized is, when you start really moving how the body wants in a given moment, this can be different in an hour and it can be different tomorrow. But in the very present moment, then you also are able to recognize how your breath is doing. Because very often people hold the breath, or they don't let the breath flow.
Yeah, another one is the chest breathing when they're tense, like up here.
Exactly, or only here, because if you really breathe all the way through, okay, through into your genitals even, or deeper, then you
Beyond
feel
diaphragm.
exactly. But then you feel emotions, and people are scared of emotions or of their emotions that they might kept in a certain way down because they had feared to experience it or to release it or to discharge, somehow.
This is where I'm a bit biased with the movement and exercise, because I don't think that you can address all of your emotions but just going to talk therapy. Go see a psychologist.
Never.
I think you, like you just said there, you have to explore your body and be like, oh, I'm feeling a lot of like tension in my hip flexors. What does that mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Stretch it out. I'm feeling something.
Especially in the hip flexors. They say it's the muscle of the soul. Okay. We keep a lot of stuff there. And very often it's a very restricted muscle, not only in length, but also in strength. And through breathing and through moving, you can release a lot of emotions. And it just happens sometimes spontaneously. But if you go into a body pump class, for instance, everything is choreographed and so on, and you just push through, it's okay. But you will never get a lot of improvements in really learning what your body is capable of, what your body wants and needs, and feeling the sensations in the body, because you're only sticking to the music, to the cues, and so on, and even the functionality don't matter, because you just need to do the reps no matter what. And you are also, of course, observed by your neighbors and by the instructor and so on. So the benefit is very, very restricted, very restricted.
The benefits, if you've been working out for longer, you can do more with it. And what is great, if you're mindful of your body, you don't have to do the full body stretch every time. Some people think, oh, I've got to do mobility. 20 minutes, got to be full body. If you can listen to what you're feeling, you can go in and do that one stretch for 5-10 minutes, knowing what's most restricted or causing you troubles, and you'll feel fantastic afterwards.
Exactly. But this also needs as a foundation the willingness really to listen to the body. Because if I only have a concept and the protocol and I just do it, but I'm never able to really feel what is the need in this very moment, then I will never really grow and get while my body is tense in a certain area or tends to get tense in this area all the time. So that even a stretching for a certain amount of time doesn't help in the middle and long run, because the pattern always gets back immediately after the stretching.
Yes. Some people think that if they just do 1 hour workout 3 to 4 times a week, that's enough. And then they just sit behind the computer, sit at the car coming home, on the couch. What role does everyday movement play? Because I'm sure that you're more active in between and trying to do more.
Well, our body is built for movement, and of course, right now I'm also sitting, and I also do quite some time during the day on my phone or on the computer. But I like to do movement snacks, and I built also in my house possibilities where I can move when I go through certain parts of the house. For instance, I
saw the ring set up.
I have several rings in my house. I have several pull-up bars, and I have several places where I can, when I have mats, or I can do something inside and out. So that's of course something I do, and it's always a reminder. Okay, I sat now for an hour, so let's have a hang for a minute, or do five pull-ups or 10, or however it feels good at the moment. and you feel already out of this sitting pattern. Because the body gets decompressed, the spine, you get stretched, and you feel the energy running through again. Because if you are sitting, you kind of get into this call-up position or slumped position, and that's of course also a restriction of energy flow. And so those are good things to create where you live or how you live, and sometimes it's also good just also according how you live and where you live, that for instance you don't need the car always. You can have a bicycle, or you can walk, or you can just also do a little bit of breathing exercise, some Tai Chi, or do a couple of bodyweight squats, or just a couple of lunges or something like that, or rolling and circling the shoulders and the hips a little bit. I very often do this, but this is it comes natural to me, because the body is so in sync with its natural movement quality as a system, that it just does it without me from the mind need to remind it. So it comes really natural. Even if I walk, I try to walk as natural as possible, feeling my hips, feeling how I put the foot onto the floor, and I roll over my feet, and I lift my chest, and I feel the breath, and so I really am really very present what I do. So when I walk, I'm not with my mind in a different place. And very often, if I do this, I get the best ideas. For instance, what I can post on social media, or what is the next idea for a reel, or for a story that I can talk people through, because it just came up as an inspiration from my spirit, let's say, and then I put it out, and people feel inspired by it because it comes through my own inspiration.
You're giving away the social media secrets. Walking is the best insights that you can possibly get.
Totally. Exactly. And so the more you learn to move naturally in your workouts, in your training, the more this habit or this capacity to move natural will also accompany you during daily life.
And what is awesome is this hard work with your mobility, strength, it stays with you, and it's easier to maintain than it was to build it. So I'm sure you could have this situation as well, Stefan, where you work hard to get your squats up, your deadlifts, your pull-ups, and you get to a point of strength where you're pretty happy, you're satisfied with what you've been able to achieve. It doesn't require as much volume to be able to maintain it. Less frequency, less sets. And that is one of the most gratifying parts about exercise, is because you've earned it, you've built it yourself. And then it's not as if you have to just always kill yourself in every single workout to maintain.
No. That's just the concept, and also coming back to what we talked about earlier, the people in the gym, and the machines, and they don't get the improvements they actually wanted to have because they enrolled in a gym or started off, but it's the connotation that the general society has about fitness. Because they have just fitness are those guys, the young ones, the ripped ones, they look extremely powerful and healthy. Very often they are not. Basically, that's also what I learned. But this is the connotation they have, and that's also a big obstacle to really start and to get into it in the first place. Because of, but it's also just an image, connotation. It's an image in the mind. So that's why I also love that nowadays in social media there are older guys like me and so on. There are several
100%.
that are really they can be used as inspirational sources to learn from them. Because if you are 40, then you probably and see a 20-year-old ripped guy, then you probably feel like, oh my God, I'm too old. It's not possible anymore. And there's so many things are still possible, even beyond 50 and so on. I have followers. I get really sometimes messages and DMs that brings tears to my mind when I read how they benefited from what I just put out, and they just stick to it for a few weeks or months, and what kind of really huge improvements and progressions they made. It's incredible sometimes that I really feel like social media is really also a blessing. It can be a curse, but it's also a blessing.
But yeah, people like yourself, Stefan, showing what is possible and having a realistic demonstration of it too. Because I'm sure that you're conveying that every workout doesn't have to be 100%. You might miss a workout because life, pain, you have to listen to your body. Things happen. It's okay. But with exercise, it is also like nutrition. In nutrition, people think you have to be perfect 100% of the time, 7 days a week, 365. Same thing with exercise. You got to go 10 out of 10, go to failure. You've always got to progress, try hard, push, like a military training. None of us work out like this all the time. The ones that say they do are actually lying because we're not robot.
No, exactly. And exactly those concepts that you just described are the main obstacles that people are not going to start because of these ideas. That it has to be like this. It has to be 100%. It has to be perfect, and I need to stick to this. And I need to have a lot. I need to put in a lot of how do you say?
100% effort. Just
Exactly.
always trying too hard.
Exactly.
What is your approach to nutrition, Stefan? Because you're in great shape, lots of muscle mass, very lean as well compared to most men your age. How do you approach nutrition without meticulously tracking macros and I imagine more of an intuitive approach?
Absolutely. I totally nourish this body intuitively. And it changed also over the years, and I'm also not sticking to a rigid kind of way of eating, because I also listen to the body. Let's say in that respect. I have a kind of 80-20 or 90-10, between 80-20, 90-10 kind of approach in terms of clean eating or proper eating. The most important thing for me is to have good sources of food. So I buy only organic and very, very local and seasonal also. So that the food source is very important to me, because then I know that a lot of energy is still in the food when it is not that processed so strongly, And I used to practice intermittent fasting for the last 3 or 4 years, but also not in a rigid way, but in a kind of flowy way. But then a few months ago, I started to have breakfast again, because I felt like I need more carbs again, because it was very high protein approach. It was a high protein approach, and I still use a lot of protein, or I eat a lot of protein, but I felt like in order to recover better and to be more full and have more energy, I need to have more carbs again. So I also started to have breakfast again, and so I have 3 meals and sometimes even a snack in between the meals. And I listen when the body is full. So it's not, that I overeat. When I have a good connection to the body in that respect, that I really feel the body is now nourished. And nourishment is really the literal word that I like to use, because nourishing is really supporting the body with all it needs in terms of macros and also micronutrients. And the better the quality of the food is, the less volume you need, because then the body is it's easier satisfied, and also that the nutrients then really enters the very biochemical pathways and cells where the nutrition needs to land.
That's a lost skill in the modern life, being able to identify when you're full and also stop. My theory is that the food is just hyper palatable, processed, sugar, fat, a lot of processed. It makes it chemically engineered that we want to eat a lot of it. But if you follow that whole foods, nourishing type of approach, you just naturally get full. Like, you just can't eat as much of that quality protein, fat, carbs.
It's true. And this is also very important, because then you keep up also a good energy during the day. Because if you eat too much or ultra processed food and so on, you get so tired after eating or after a meal, so that you need to have naps all the time, or then you need to have a lot of boosters or other kind of chemical stuff to have a pike again until you go down again. So it's kind of really not suitable to a natural human energy support. And sometimes it's also good to fast a little bit, because during the fasting times, all the important repair mechanisms start to do their jobs better, rather than always having food all the time, because very often the body doesn't need food, but the mind does, because of a certain challenge or stress or a problem or something like that. Or you are now in a certain situation and you're not satisfied yet. So in order to be more satisfied, you think you need, on top of that, you need some sugar or some alcohol or some other kind of stuff, in order to feel the whole possibility of feeling good.
Yeah. At the gym, we test our strength by measuring our 1 rep max to know how strong we are. We also train to failure sometimes to know what our limit is. The same thing applies to nutrition, I believe. If we never allow ourselves to genuinely be hungry with some fasting, you don't know what real hunger is until you do that.
Absolutely. And also, on different days or on certain days, you might have a totally different need for calorie intake and for macro intake, because on a day when you have a hard session planned and scheduled, you probably need to fill up your system before with some carbs, and also later some carbs, in order to have all for the muscles and all for the regenerative processes, giving the body everything you need. But if you do, for instance, have a rest day and so on, you don't need that much calories and maybe not that much carbs. So also cycling a little bit in terms of macros according to your daily intensities or not that intensive days. It's very important. So also in that respect, you need to learn to go with what the body needs, and then maybe you go on a day like this, you go on a calorie deficit, or you do an intermittent fasting on this very day, and you have all the benefits because all the repairing mechanisms can start to work properly, and the body can recover easier than on a intense training day. This is because this, if you to learn to get an idea about the amounts of calories, it's good to track sometime. But if you then only stick to an app and you are the slave of the app and so on in terms of your eating habits, then you didn't learn really the body wisdom in terms of what the body really needs and wants at a given moment or on a given day.
The challenge and the complexity for people listening is that there is no one size fits all.
Exactly.
There's no this many carbs, fat, protein for every single person. There's recommendations of ratios, but even that, as you said, based on activity level, goals, it's subject to change. And this just brings home what you've been saying this whole conversation. You need to look at your body as an experiment. You're N of 1 in the experimental language, and your data is the best data for you. And it takes some work. It takes years to get an idea of what to do. But for me, that's the real joy. It's my body. It's how it responds, completely different to yours.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what we need to learn as a species again, that the whole experience as a human being in a human body, that's the purpose. Because we are often looking for the life purpose, and doing a lot of whatever vision quests and so on and so on. But the life purpose is also to live a good, healthy life and to use what you have and to realize the preciousness and also the gift of the body and the experiential possibilities and opportunities we have through this body. But the body needs to be treated well as a human, as a real human being, and not as a whatever, a zombie or something like that, just having the body but no connection to it whatsoever.
Stefan, you're awesome, man. I really appreciate what you're doing for the fitness culture, leading by example, showing what is possible as you get into your 50s and beyond with strength, muscle, and how that comes together for living a great life. Where can people find out more about your work?
Well, the best thing is my Instagram, The Spirit Body Architect. I also created a nice online course for body weight and mobility without equipment. So where people can really build a strong foundation and get a nice connection through their bodies or with their bodies again. It's called Strong, Mobile and Free, and you get it also on my Instagram. And I'm also planning on doing more on YouTube in the future. So maybe my YouTube is also a valuable source. That's basically it.
Awesome. Check him out, everyone. I'm also hoping to keep doing crazy stuff when I'm 60 as well, man. So thank you so much.
You will. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.